Okay, good afternoon. My name's Leah, and we are live at Canadian Western Agribition. We're really excited to be celebrating our 50th year of Agribition, and while we would have loved to be seeing you guys in person, we're really excited to be chatting with you today. We have grain farmer Carly Rumple here today, and she's going to talk to you guys and answer all your questions about grain. And I will let her introduce herself. So welcome, Carly, and I hope you guys have lots of questions for Carly. So take it away.
Thanks, Leah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, and thank you to Agriculture in the Classroom and Canadian Western Agribition. My name is Carly Rumple. I am a agriculture public trust specialist with the government of Saskatchewan. I grew up on a mixed beef and grain farm just outside of Craven, and I did a couple years as an agronomist, so kind of a crop doctor. We might talk about that a little bit later, and I am happy to be here today.
Awesome. And just a couple housekeeping things before we're going to watch a quick video, but before we watch the video, we're going to do a couple housekeeping items. So please make sure that your microphones are on mute, and I'm sure everyone knows that by now. To ask a question, it would be great if you could put your questions in the chat, and if you can please include the grade from which you're asking those questions, that would be lovely and wonderful. And we do have a few questions that came in from email, so we'll make sure that we get those questions to Carly. And yes, we're looking forward to this. So I will let Adrian take it away with the video. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of technical trouble, but we're just going to go straight to questions. So we have a few questions from Walker School, from Mr. Stevenson's class. And, okay, Carly, these are some burning questions. So Mr. Stevenson's class wants to know, what kind of tractors do you have?
So if you want to know brand, we are green. We run John Deere tractors. And our lineup's a little bit older because we don't run too many acres, but we've got combines, we've got regular closed cab tractors, and we have an open cab tractor, as well as a skid steer that we use for feeding our cows.
Awesome. And what kind of crops do you grow on your farm?
We grow a little bit of everything on our farm. So we have yellow peas, we have barley and wheat, as well as canola is a big part of our crop rotation, and we grow corn for our cows as well.
Okay, and then one more question from Mr. Stevenson's class. What time do you get up in the morning, and what time do you go to bed?
That's a good question. I am a little bit different because I'm not on farm right now, but my dad, he gets up around 6 in the morning and he goes to bed at 10 o'clock at night, just like a normal person going to work would. That depends on the year, but right now that's about it.
Great. Okay. And from Ms. Mayer's class, grade 1 from Wilfred Walker, what can you do with canola?
What can we do with canola? So canola is primarily used for oil production. So when you're cooking your supper, you can use canola oil, and so they crush the little black seeds, and those little black seeds contain oil that then goes towards your food, and it can also be used for animal feed. Okay,
and a grade 3-4 class from St. Josephat. How big are your fields?
Our fields are about 160 acres, and an acre is the size of the playing part of a football field, so 160 of those.
Great. Okay. Let's see some other questions that we have come in here. Okay, so those plants that you have behind you, did you just harvest them from the field? Did you just dig them up?
No. It's a little too cold to have plants this green right now. These were likely grown inside for a bit of time here so that they could be this green and beautiful when it's that snowy outside.
Okay. And speaking of winter, what does a grain farmer do in the winter?
The winter time is a busy time for all farmers. As a grain farmer, you're working on marketing your grain because you can grow it, but you still got to sell it when it's out of the field. So we're on the phone with making sure that we can sell the grain that we grow next year, as well as planning out what we're going to grow next year. Farming is a business, so we work at it year round. We're planning out our crop rotation, so exactly what we're going to seed where, the fertilizer that we're going to use on that, and even lining up our herbicides and insecticides for the following year.
Great. Okay, now we have a grade 3 class. Sorry, Miss Garrier's class cannot. What if you put too much water in soil that has seeds in it? So I guess what happens if there's too much rain or if there's too much flooding? What happens to the seeds?
So the seeds, they can end up drowning if there's too much water, because seeds need air in the soil as well. So sometimes if you look out in a field, if there's a wet patch in a lower area, nothing will grow in there, and as it gets a little bit drier towards the outside, you've got some pretty not good looking plants that are a little bit smaller, maybe a little yellow, just because they're struggling to get some more oxygen to grow. And then on the outside where it's actually dry, they're growing healthy. So too much water also isn't good.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we saw kind of the opposite this year with a drought.
Yes.
So I guess maybe explain a little bit what happened this year when we didn't get enough water.
So with not having enough water, our crops couldn't grow to their full potential. So we have water that is stored in the soil, and plants are really good at finding water. Plants are smarter than you think. So they have a root system underground, and majority of your plant is actually root underneath. And those roots are traveling through the air pockets in the soil, trying to find water to grow. And so they end up putting a lot of energy into trying to find that water to grow, and they don't put as much energy into growing what's on top. So they end up being a little bit shorter here, but really long beneath, and that ends up taking away what we call yield. So they don't produce as much grain as they should.
Okay, we have a question from grade 3-4, and I apologize, I forget which school you're at, but how tall do your plants grow?
Oh, they can range all over the place. So this year, with how dry it was, some of our wheat was about at my shin. I don't know if you can see that, but it was pretty short. But I've also walked through wheat fields where it's been at my hip. So they can be quite tall or quite short. Canola can be at my shoulders, and you're swimming through it.
Okay, grade 1 from Miss Myers. How many tractors do you have?
Ooh. I think right now we have 4. We have a very big one for taking our seeder, our air drill through the field. We have a medium-sized one for our sprayer, and we have a smaller one for just yard work and another medium-sized one for other field work.
Okay, and a tough question from grade 3-4 from Ms. Simpson's class at Connaught. How do plants create oxygen?
Through photosynthesis. Now, I don't want to lie to you guys.
It is. This class must be doing a big unit on plants right now. No, it is because of photosynthesis.
It is because of photosynthesis.
So they take the carbon dioxide in, and then plants release the oxygen. So it's a great, wonderful system that works and it provides healthy air for us.
You guys are schooling me today.
Yes, this is a wonderful group. Okay, Connaught grade 4-5s. How many types of fields do you have?
How many types of fields?
Yeah, so maybe different crops do you grow?
So we grow, like I said earlier today, we've got peas and wheat and barley. We would say that's the same kind of type. And we've got corn and canola. So I guess we would be around 4 different types of grain fields. And then we also have pasture land for cattle.
Okay. And do you grow mustard now, or I guess maybe have you ever grown mustard?
We have never grown mustard on my farm, and I don't know why.
Okay. Okay, so we have a grade 6-7 class with Miss Hope. And how long does it generally take for one stalk of canola to grow? And are there certain farms for certain crops? So maybe we'll address the first one first.
Okay.
How long does it take for one stalk of canola to grow?
So canola, you would typically plant it end of April or middle of April to beginning of May, and then harvest it with some of our newer varieties, so different types of canola. You can harvest it mid to late August, even into October, or November sometimes, depends on the year. But so it takes about all summer.
Okay, so next question from grade 6, 7. Are there certain farms for certain crops?
So yes, there's most farms in Saskatchewan have multiple different types of crops, like my farm does. And then we also have farms over by Outlook and closer to Alberta that have irrigation, so they can water their crops using more than just the rain. And they are able to grow things like potatoes and cabbage and fruits and vegetables that we wouldn't be able to grow on my farm.
Excellent. And maybe, Carly, maybe you could talk a little bit about why it's important to grow different crops on each farm, and you can maybe talk a little bit about crop rotation.
Yeah, for sure. So crop rotation is extremely important on a farm because each of these crops, they have bugs and diseases that like to attack them, same as we do. And so if you grow, say, wheat on the same field year after year after year, it's going to end up with a lot of the disease that attacks that wheat in that field. And also it will take away some of the nutrients from your field, which is why we grow peas on our farm. They actually fix nitrogen into the soil, which is an important fertilizer source. So when we grow our peas, they put a little bit of nitrogen into the soil for the next year's crop of wheat to have a nice little boost. And it's just all around a better practice for the sustainability of our farm.
Okay, great. We have a grade 3-4 class from Thompson with Ms. And my apologies, Tay Patat. How many farmers does it take to harvest a large crop?
How many farmers does it take? So on our farm, we have 2 combines, and then we also have 2 grain trucks, and then somebody at home. We need about 5 people to harvest our crops on our farm. And I know some farmers need quite a bit more than that because they have a lot more acres and a lot more fields to harvest. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah, thank you. Okay, and then we have grade 3 from Miss Chevrier's class. Is your farm family run with brothers, sisters, uncles, or is it just your dad? Do most of farms that you work with, are they large family businesses?
Yeah, so our farm was at one time a larger family farm. We had my uncle on, and then he decided that he didn't want to do the actual farm anymore, so we split her down the middle, which was totally fine. It worked out great for the both of us. So right now, it's just my dad's family, so our little family of 6 here. I know lots of other operations are uncles and brothers and cousins that work together to farm the whole.
Okay, great. We have a question from grade 3. How do you make grains?
How do we make grains? So first we plant the seeds in the soil. So we have an air drill that is our seeder. And we can put the seeds into the soil at the exact right depth with our fertilizer. And so then it starts to grow using that fertilizer, using the sun and water and carbon. And then we do have to spray our plants and our crops with things like herbicides in order to take away weeds that might be causing competition. So we don't want competition in our fields because that will end up reducing the amount of grain that we can produce. After spraying is done, then the crops start to ripen, and you can desiccate some, you can swath them. Desiccating means to spray it again with another sort of chemical that will dry down the plant to the very bottom, and it makes it much easier to harvest. And then from there, we harvest it with our combines and put it in the bin or sell it.
Okay, great. And we have lots of questions and not a lot of time, so we're going to start rapid firing them, Carly.
Okay.
Okay. Grade 3 Imperial class, where do the grains go after your farm?
After our farm, they go to the elevator where we sell them, and from the elevator, they go on a truck or a rail car to either BC or Ontario.
Awesome. Okay. Miss Greer's class, grade 3, how long does it take to seed your fields?
Seeding typically only takes about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. And then, my apologies, I don't know your first name, but Redding, how long does it take to harvest? Do you have any animals on your farm?
Harvest takes a lot longer than seeding. It can be a month to 2 months, depends on how fast things dry down. And yes, we do. We have cows on our farm.
Okay. And then grade 3 from, again, sorry, I don't know your, but Adagids, when you're planting, can you use any dirt or do you have to put something in it?
Say that one more time.
When you are planting, can you use any dirt or do you have to put anything in it?
Yeah, we do have to put fertilizer in our dirt in order to feed the crops and the seeds for them to grow.
Okay. And grade 4 from St. Elizabeth, how much canola do you grow?
Canola is a big part of our rotation. That was a really good question. I would say it's about a third of our farm.
Okay. And from Redding, when did you start farming?
I've been stuck in it my whole life. I was born into it, and so was my dad and my dad's dad.
Okay, so grade 3, 4 from Connaught, do you have animals on your farm?
Yes, we do. We have cows, so we have about 200 beef cows.
Okay, and Ms. Westbrook, grade 4, 5 Thompson Community School, how big is the sprayer and how long does it take to spray?
Our sprayer is about 30 feet, and it runs all through from July till August, depends on what we need to spray.
Great. Ms. Greer, grade 3, what happens if the plants get too much sun?
Too much sun? Typically not too much of an issue, but it's when they don't have enough water, then they'll start to die.
Okay. Grade 4, St. Elizabeth, how much fertilizer do you use?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, that's good. Ms. Greer, grade 3, what happens if none of your crops grow?
If none of our crops grow, then it depends what time of year it is. We can reseed them and hope to get some sort of crop out of it. We don't typically sell too much of our crop beforehand, so luckily we have cows.
Okay, from Renell, what temperature will the crop be harmed at?
Temperature, again, it's more if you don't have moisture with it, but around 35 to 38, depending on what your crop is, it will start to get hurt.
Okay, from Adagids, grade 3, what is your favorite seed?
My favorite seed is peas. They're bouncy and you can actually eat them dry.
Excellent. Ms. Greer, how long does it take to water the field?
Oh, so we don't irrigate on my farm, so I'm not sure.
Okay, Ms. Chevrier, grade 3, can you tell us what farmers do during each season, i.e. spring is when you would seed, and then what happens the rest of the seasons, I guess?
Yeah, so as you said, spring is when we seed, and then in the summertime we will do majority of our spraying. Fall time is harvest, and then winter time is a big time of year for getting the business ready, selling and soil sampling and figuring out what we're going to need for next year.
Okay, Ms. Hope's class from grade 6, 7, do you grow the same crops every year?
Yes and no. So we always grow canola, we always grow wheat, and we typically grow barley. This year we put in a little bit of oats to help feed our cows, and we always put in corn to feed our cows. And one year we didn't do peas, but we did soybeans instead to try out a new pulse, is what peas are called.
Okay, so from Y Redding, are there any crops that can last through the winter?
Yes, there are crops that you would seed in the fall time, like winter wheat and fall rye that stay dormant. They're kind of like sleeping under the ground while the snow is on top, and then they pop out in the spring and are ready in around July, August for harvest.
Okay, great. From Ms. Coffin's class, grade 5, how much water do you use on your crops?
Again, we don't irrigate, so I am actually not sure what the answers to that is.
Okay, so from Levi Walker School, grade 6, 7, how long does it take to seed a seed to sprout? Sorry, how long does it take a seed to sprout?
To actually sprout, it depends on the seed, but it can take about 7 days, I would say, is a good top.
Okay. From Ms. Hope's class in grade 6, 7, if you had a hard year, such as a drought, what do you do?
On a hard year like a drought, you have to make accommodations. So for ourselves this year with our cows, we had to sell some of our cows because we didn't have enough feed to feed them. And you have to look at maybe not spraying some of the things that you would normally spray and selling at the best price that you can once it's all done.
Okay, Canuck grade 4, 5s want to know, do you have to replace the dirt when you plant each year?
No, because what we use is an air drill and it puts the seed directly in the ground and doesn't actually move much of our dirt. All of our dirt stays put and just puts that seed nicely in the ground.
Okay, now we only have about 5 minutes left and there's lots of questions. So I may ask that maybe we stop asking questions so we can try to get through the majority of the rest. So Ms. Mayer's grade 1 class asks, how do you protect your plants from bugs?
So to protect our plants from bugs, we have seed treatments first on the seeds. They're either blue or red, and they protect those little seeds and the seedlings from being eaten by bugs at that stage. And if we start to have bugs in the middle of the year, we really try not to spray with an insecticide. But if we do have bugs, that is what we have to do, is spray with an insecticide.
Okay, Canuck grade 4, 5s want to know, is it fun being on the farm and what do you like about it?
I love being on the farm. It's my favorite. Probably my favorite part is being with the cows, but if I can't pick that because I'm currently your grain farmer expert, I like being out in the crops. There's nothing more peaceful.
Okay, Ms. Westbrook's grade 4, 5s, how long are the roots of the crops?
They can get down to 3 feet, I would say, is a good depth for most.
Awesome. From A. Cater, do people rent your fields?
Not of our fields. We do rent other people's fields, though.
Okay, and Ms. Rogers, where do you sell your crop harvest and who buys it?
We sell to elevators like Richardson Pioneer or Viterra. And repeat the second part of that question.
And who buys it?
They actually have somebody in the elevator that is a grain buyer or a grain merchant that will call us and let us know their prices, or we call them and ask their prices and decide if we want to sell to them.
Okay, and does all of the grain that you sell stay in Saskatchewan?
No, some of it goes to the ports at BC or Ontario and then overseas. Some of it does stay right in Saskatchewan. It goes all over the world, though.
Okay, and Canuck grade 4, 5s want to know, how do you sell your crop and where do you take it? And I guess you kind of talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But maybe just discuss how you sell your crop in a little bit more detail to the...
Yeah, so like I said, we'll talk with a grain buyer there. So we can either sell our grain before we even plant it. So we can make a contract with the elevator to then haul to them in September, or they want it right off the combine. So we can load our grain trucks up and take them to the elevator then when we sign back in the winter time. Or we can make contracts with them as we're out in the field combining or even afterwards. So there's lots of times for us to sell our grain. Like I said, there's all sorts of elevators around Saskatchewan. You'll see them along the highways. There's the big, tall buildings. And they've got trains that take the grain all over the place. And yeah, I think that's all.
No, that's wonderful. Okay, I think we have time for one more question here. So from Y Reading, how tall does the canola grow?
So canola can grow, it can be very tall. It can get up to my shoulders, and I am 5'4", so I'd say around 5 feet tall is how high it can get.
Okay, and then one last question before we wrap things up. And what does a typical grain farm do to make sure it's sustainable?
Typical grain farm in Saskatchewan now, most of us have switched to no-till, like I mentioned earlier, with our drill not moving any soil. Everybody tries to have a good solid crop rotation so that we aren't introducing new pests and diseases or harboring them in our fields. And soil testing is also an important thing that we do to make sure that we're putting down the right amount of fertilizer and not too much or too little.
Okay, well that's all the time we have, Carly. So I know that the classrooms, you're so excited to have all of that information from Carly. So let's give her a round of applause. I'm not going to clap because it's going to be really loud in your ears. But thank you, Carly. And just a reminder to all the teachers, we are doing these sessions each day this week. So tomorrow we have bison, Wednesday we have beef, Thursday we have sheep, and Friday we have alpacas. And we want to thank everybody so much for tuning in and watching today. And just a reminder that while we can't be together this year, we're really excited to welcome all of you students back next year. So please take care, and we hope to see you this week on this and next year in person. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.